don't just love music, they run the show at night. Dropping beats and lineup tips, turning waiver wire into light. Fast lane pickups, midnight moves, setting rosters right. They'll tell you who to start and who to bite the fight. Listen to sports, fireballs, rockin' renegades, crank it loud, crank it proud. Wanna win your fantasy league? Join the renegade crowd. John and Ralph know the way. They'll guide you through the fray. Starts and sits, waiver wire pickups. Tune in and play. From sleeper calls to breakout stars, they break it down and play by play. Stats and stories, grit and guts, they sharpen up your day. Trade advice and matchup gold, they hustle for your pay. Putting fantasy in overdrive, carving out the way. Listen to sports, fireballs, rockin' renegades, crank it loud, crank it proud. Wanna win your fantasy league? Join the renegade crowd. John and Ralph know the way. They'll guide you through the fray. Starts and sits, waiver wire pickups. Tune in and play. Late night hustle, early morning reads, they're scanning every game. Fast lane pickups, timely hits, they've got the instincts and the flame. No fluff, no noise, just real talk, no two hosts the same. John and Ralph, your fantasy compass, staking out the claim. Listen to sports, Vols, rockin' renegades, crank it loud, crank it proud. Wanna win your fantasy league? Join the renegade crowd. John and Ralph know the way. They'll guide you through the fray. Starts and sits, waiver wire pickups. Tune in and play. Listen to sports, Vols, rockin' renegades, rock your roster every day. Fast lane pickups, John and Ralph know the way. Turn it up.
Welcome. We had a week off. Hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We're back. Welcome to the Sports 50 Rockin' Renegades show. I'm ready to go over our starts and sits. If you have any questions, we know the fantasy playoffs are coming up for you guys. We've got some players coming back this week. But before we get started, I want to welcome my guest, as always, the guru of the gridiron, John. Welcome, John.
Ralph, how are you, man?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Hey, how's the winter treating you so far?
Beautiful. I've been outside putting up Christmas decorations and actually just.
Were you on the roof? You weren't on your roof, were you?
Not on the roof, out in the yard, man. If I was on the roof, what would happen? I'd be on the ground. I'd be Chevy Chase, man.
Well, hey, if any of you guys are out on your roof and you're putting up decorations, you notice you got loose shingles or anything wrong with your roof, call A+ Roofing. They take care of your roofing, your exteriors, anything from shingles to roof replacement, new vents, anything you need. 412-515-5466. Call A+ Roofing. They will take care of you. Tom Rolfe and John sent you in from Sports Bible. John, playoffs are right around the corner, man. Welcome back. Thanksgiving good?
Thanksgiving was real good. How about you?
Can't complain, man. Fat, dumb, and happy. You know how it goes. You got to love football, turkey, and beer, man. It all fits well together.
That's right. And 3 games that day. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Oh, it was great. I love Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday just for the football. Hey, John, speaking of sponsors, man, one of our sponsors always is Fastlane Coffee. What do we got tonight, John?
Man, it's something I know a little bit about. I got 2 different flavors here. I'm going to show you guys: Arpeggio Citrus and Power Chord Praline. You can get all the Fast Lane coffee flavors at rockyourjava.com. Brand new website too, everybody. So jump on there, take a look at it, and you'll enjoy it. And this week, man, the Fast Lane Player of the Week, Bryce Young. I mean, who would have thought this?
First off, who would have thought we'd be saying Bryce Young is the Player of the Week, right?
I got him sitting on my bench in our league, and then I look at it, I'm thinking, what Bryce Young are we going to see every week? 15 to 20 for 206 yards. Doesn't sound too great. 3 touchdowns against the Rams defense, and he did it when he needed to in the fourth quarter. And, I mean, the guy was he was poised. He looked like a crafty veteran. It didn't look like the Bryce Young that we saw earlier or even in the beginning of the season. Very impressive.
And the best part about that, the guy coming off the bench, man, your running back, Chuba, looks like he's making a comeback. Now, I know Doddle's still going to be the man, but, I think it's going to be more of a split carry backfield.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to hang on to Chuba because I could see that being a nice offseason trade in the works. So we'll see what happens there. He looked good. He looked like the Chuba Hubbard of last year that we saw.
Yeah, back from injury, he's looking good. Carolina could be an up-and-comer here soon. Like I said, if, Young next year takes a step forward, they add another receiver to the other side of McMillan. They got a good running game. They bolstered that defense a little bit. They could be an up-and-comer.
Yeah, like we've been saying the last few weeks, actually most of this season. I like the way Dave Canales is handling his team. I mean, they look good. They're solid. They're tough. They don't give up. It's a very young team, but it's a team that plays with a lot of heart. And where that team was to where they are right now, very impressive.
Well, speaking of that, what jersey are you wearing tonight? Everybody wants to know.
Oh man, I got Cam Newton.
Oh, the Newton.
Cam. You know what? The only thing I don't have is the boa around my neck and the hat. I'd be set if I
I'd tell you guys would be brothers. I couldn't tell you two apart in a lineup.
That's right. You'd have thought we both played for Carolina and New England.
That's right. But hey, John, we got probably got a short show tonight. We have to cut it down to 30, 40 minutes. We got other stuff at Sports Bible going on tonight. JT says you look more like Fig Newton. I think he looks more like Isaac Newton than Fig. But, that's the point. But let's anybody, if you have any questions, I know your fantasy playoffs are coming up. If you have trade deadlines are this week. If you have any trades you want to run by us, reach out, let us know. But let's run through our start and sits. The funny part is, John, we spoke a little bit before this, and we both had the same start and sits at quarterback, so I had to change mine on the fly. So we'll let you start first.
Okay, I'm going to start now. I'm going to start with Dak Prescott for my start this week. Dak against the Lions. I mean, Detroit right now, we don't know where they're at. I mean, I thought, and I know you thought the same thing, and everybody listening thought the same thing, that this team, was gonna get there this year. You could see now where the loss of the 2 coordinators is right now. Some injuries, obviously. St. Brown went down. But, let's go with Dak. I mean, the guy's, what can we say? Lighting it up every week, solid, not making the big mistakes that we've seen. And I think that's where, he's really brought his game to the forefront here.
And it kind of helps that you have CeeDee Lamb on one side. And then on the other side, you have the worst trade of Steeler history is Pickens going to Dallas. Dak has the weapons, man. Wouldn't it look nice if we would have had Pickens and Metcalf sitting right now? Not that Rodgers could get him the ball, but it would have looked nice. But yeah, Dak's a good start this week. I agree with you. I was going with Dak too, but I'm going to go a little bit different here. So I was looking. And we've had this guy as a sit the last couple weeks. I'm going with Bo Nix. Going against the Raiders. And I get it. He only scored like 16 points over the last 3 games or something like that. But I think this is the week he breaks out. Let's face it, he's going against the Raiders. The Raiders they've allowed 6 quarterbacks over 16 points. In the last 3 weeks since week 7. So I mean, I think Nix puts up a 20-pointer, 25-point week against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I would start Nix this week.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. I think it seems like Nick's. It seems like he's looking a little bit more comfortable the last few weeks. You know, he's one of those guys though, but you never know what you're going to get from week to week. And really Denver. I wanted to bring that up. I mean, what do you think of that, Ralph? I mean, the team is obviously in the top of the conference, near the top with the Patriots. Is this Denver Broncos team a playoff contender? The defense is, but man, what are we doing here?
The defense is tough. With JK going down, the running game, they need to establish the running game again. With Harvey coming in last week, I mean, he's only running like 3 yards a pop or 3.5 yards a pop, but he did have the 2 touchdowns. I think they need to get the running game going, and a lot of that with that is you're not seeing big numbers from Sutton, you're not seeing big passing numbers. It's a tough call, John. Like I said, the defense is doing well enough to hold them in, but I think they need a little step up from the running game.
I totally agree. Because that's what that offense is predicated on right now. Knicks gets that running game going. We start to see a little bit, opening up a little bit more. And Harvey even out of the backfield, catching passes. We like to see, a little bit of that. That's especially if you're a fantasy guy with Harvey sitting in your roster.
He's going to get a chance. He's going to get a chance. But speaking of running backs, let's move to your start running back this week. Let's go with the running backs. Who you got for running back, John?
This is one we've talked about for a few weeks now. And now he's starting to step it up a little bit with his team starting to get back into the groove a little bit, and that's Chase Brown. He was one of our disappointments we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Now you're seeing, you got Joe Burrow back, and defenses don't have to, stuff the line to stop the run. Now they have Burrow, so now you're going to see, that offense opening up, and that opens it up for Chase Brown too. Not only with the running game, but receiving out of the backfield.
And you're going to see that Higgins will be back with another week or so. So you'll be back to, Burrow, Higgins, Chase, and Brown. It's could be trouble for our Steelers, John. We have to go against the Ravens again. I'm sorry. And then we also got to face the Browns. We got to face the Bengals. I mean, it's going to look tough for our Steelers.
Yeah, like you said, Chase Brown and Higgins. It's the law firm from Cincinnati is what it sounds like.
It sure does. Hey, John, my start this week, I'm going to go. I don't want to say a little out there, but I'm going to go with Blake Corum. So, they're already talking about, Williams. They want to sit them a little bit, prepare him, if they're going to make the playoffs. They want to keep him fresh. I mean, you look, he had over 80 yards last week rushing. He had a touchdown, against the Cards. They're going against the Cards this week. And the Cards they're actually 9th most in points allowed to running backs. I think you see a 50-50 split of this backfield moving forward, at least into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Sean McVay is gonna rest a little bit. He's he wants to go into the playoffs strong. The team did lose last week, so that's surprising. Lost to Carolina. I think we're going to see a different Rams team this week. I think we're going to see the Rams team that we've seen the entire season. I think Stafford lights it up, but I also think Corum, I see a touchdown out of him, probably 50, 60 yards rushing as well.
Could very well. And if you looked at the injury earlier in the week here, they're saying, Williams, he's resting with an ankle. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Maybe they give him less touches this week, but we'll see. But I think, like, I agree with you. I think maybe 60 yards and touchdown of Corum. I think it's my start of the week. Who you got for sitting? Who you sitting at running back, John?
The big sit. This guy's sitting on my bench in my work league. It's David Montgomery. I mean, you see him, he had the touchdowns last week, Thanksgiving, but, been very, I'm not going to say he's been a disappointment, but he's kind of been a borderline disappointment, for us this year. We're not seeing the touchdowns. We're not seeing the touches. Jahmyr Gibbs is such a good running back, and he's so diverse, that, Montgomery is kind of taking a, even a bigger backseat to this now. So I'm going to sit Montgomery this week. I think Gibbs is going to get a lot more carries. I mean, Dallas, obviously they haven't been big on stopping a run. So, I'm going to say Gibbs more this week. sit Montgomery. And then we'll see. Hopefully, I'm right. Everybody that's listening, man.
I hope you're right too, because I have Gibbs in my big money league, and I already made the playoffs. So I need some big weeks coming up here from him. My sit this week is Woody Marks. Against Kansas City, now it looks like he's a starter over Chubb. I get it. But you're looking only like 3.2, 3.6 yards a carry. I mean, the guy isn't putting up a ton of yards, or at least not many yards after the catch. And you look at like the Chiefs. I mean, they allow the sixth fewest points to running backs. Plus you're looking at Marks this week. He was he did not practice this week with a foot injury. If you guys are counting on Marks this week, I think it's a solid sit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's got the questionable tag too. That's another tough backfield. I mean, from week to week, you see, Marks has a good game, and then Nick Chubb steps in, has a good game. You don't know who's getting the goal line carries. I mean, there's no anything that you could put a stamp on with that backfield. So yeah, I think that's a good sit, Ralph.
Yeah. So the next, John, let's look at our receivers. You reaching a little high for your receivers this week, or are you going straight across the board? But hey, John, just remember, if you need to get up high, don't do it yourself, man. Don't get on the ladder. A-plus roofing. You have any roofing problems, any leaks, any shingles? We know we get heavy winds here in Pittsburgh. They'll come here, they'll take a look, they'll give you an estimate, they'll take care of you. Tell them Ralph and John, requested them. Give them a call, 412-515-5466. A-plus roofing will take care of you. But who's your high reach at receiver for start this week, John?
Jameson Williams. We expected this guy to to kind of elevate a little bit more this season. He started out really slow. Last couple weeks, looking good. He's looking really good. I mean, he's getting the looks from Goff again, and we hadn't seen that most of the season. With St. Brown injured, we don't know where that's at. Jameson Williams, I mean, you got to have a guy that needs to be stepping up, and this is our guy right here. I think he's a good, solid start this week.
And that's the thing with St. Brown, the sun god. Don't count him out, man. He's saying there's a chance he might play.
Right.
The guy has played through injuries, but is he going to be himself? I'd rather see them sit him a week. You know what I mean? And hopefully they push into the playoffs. But John, my start of the week is the guy we talked about picking up, and he's always injured, but coming off the injury is Christian Watson from the Packers. Now, we talk about Love. You never know what you're going to get, how many touchdowns you're going to get. Reed will be coming back. We'll talk about that later in the show about, guys coming back. But you look at Watson's numbers, like the last 3 weeks, he has 13 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's almost the guy you want to get in there as your third receiver. Last week he had 4 catches for 80 yards. I mean, it looks like he's taken over from Dobbs. He's becoming the main receiver, especially the deep threat. And they are going to get Chicago. It's 9th most allowed receivers in points. I start Christian Watson this week.
I love the start right there. In fact, I got him sitting on the bench in our league, and he'll be starting this week against the Bears. We never know what we're going to get out of that receiving core. That Green Bay receiving core with all the injuries. I mean, Watson out, comes back, Reed's out. The consistency has been Dobbs. But, like you said, now you're starting to see Watson get the looks. And Jordan Love is playing a lot better these last couple of weeks. We criticized
he had 4 touchdowns last week. He was sitting on my bench in one league, and, I could kick myself for not starting him. But, when you have Lamar Jackson in one league, you have Burrow in the other, it's kind of hard to start Love,
That's right.
over those guys. You
hate to start Love.
I hear you. It's a love-hate relationship with me and that guy, John. But
That's it.
I'm sure you feel it. But who's your sit this week at receiver?
I'm going to give you a good one here. Let me get my list out. This is one that I can't believe that I'm even saying this. Justin Jefferson. This guy, I mean, obviously one of the best receivers in the league.
If not the best.
Exactly. The quarterback play is just so bad in Minnesota. If I was one of the quarterbacks in Minnesota. God only knows who it is this week is going to play. But I'm throwing the ball to this guy almost every single time. He goes up, he makes plays. He could be in triple coverage making plays. But Justin Jefferson, and it's just because of the quarterback situation in Minnesota that I'm going to sit Justin Jefferson. It's not the player. It's this guy, with a solid quarterback. Them losing Sam Darnold was probably one of the worst offseason moves, that we could talk about.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, the only way Justin Jefferson puts up big weeks is they play the Steelers every week, and he goes off in the first quarter for 90-some yards. Because we can talk about our Steeler defense and our players and but
oh man,
God, Jefferson hasn't done that since. But so be it. So
Who do you got?
my sit this week too, John, is another star, and I'm sitting Debo against Minnesota. I get it. The last 3 weeks have been good, but McLaren's coming back. You look at McLaren last week though. He's back. Yet, if you're talking about 14 targets for 96 yards,
right.
They're going against Minnesota, though. The fifth best, fewest yards allowed to receivers. I think Debo, if you guys are counting on Debo this week, I would probably sit him because I'm not seeing another high week, especially with McLaren coming back. And we do have Jaden Daniels coming back from injury right around the corner here. So
Right. Yeah, if you watched the game last week, you saw him. I mean, McLaurin had a ton of looks. And another guy that's also seeing the targets now even more is Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz is always solid, John.
Right.
You look at him like every week, he doesn't see a ton of targets, but anywhere from 4, 5, 6 targets a week, that's still taking looks away from, Debo. I'm kind of sorry they're not using Debo more in the run game though. You know what I mean? They've used him that way in the past and to freeze him up. I mean, because let's face it, the run game in Washington is with Bill and the other guys. It hasn't been good. So I just can't start Debo against Minnesota. So that's my sit of the week for receiver.
Yeah, if you watched the game too last week, I mean, Mariota's not looking his way that much. I mean, there was a couple plays where you saw that he's running a crossing route, he's wide open, and he's looking at McLaurin and Zach Ertz. So it's just one of those things. I think you'll see a difference when Daniels comes back. That's defenses aren't as afraid of Marcus Mariota in the passing game. He's more one of those guys you got to contain. Don't let him outside the pocket because his rushing abilities. But you got Daniels. It's a multifaceted guy. He's great in the running game. He can take off, but he's also good passing as well. He's going to be looking for Debo. So, but I agree with you that this week for sure, based off of what I saw last week.
Now that could change as early as next week if Daniels comes back. There's talk about him possibly coming back this week. I just don't see it. Right. But as we're looking at that, let's talk about some of the guys that came back. We started at the beginning of the year with injuries. Guys that are hurt. What do you do? But people, if you're making your playoff runs, you're going to probably get trades come in. I had a trade come in today, John. A guy offered me a 5th for AJ Brown. Now, A.J. Brown hasn't been lighting the league up, but in a keepers league, I'm not trading A.J. Brown for a 5th. I'll tell you that right now. No. But, if these guys are out there in your league, if people were obviously, if you don't have Dynasty League, if you have drop leagues. Now, in my big money league, somebody dropped Burrow and somebody dropped Daniels, and I picked them both up just to hold them so they can't play them against me in the playoffs, right?
Right.
So if any of these guys are out there on the waiver wire, make sure you pick them up. But Burrow did come back last week. He looked halfway decent. Him and Chase. I think it only gets better. And like I said, it's going to be a little tough for our Steelers. And Higgins should be back too in a week or two. So there's 2 guys, looking, to come back if they're out there. Put a bid in. Put the high bid in. Get that. Get these guys for your playoff run. And then we did say Daniels is coming back in another week or so. Right. So look for Jaden Daniels to come back. But what about Reed from Green Bay? The guy had a busted up foot. He had a busted up collarbone. They're saying he's already practicing, John. We talked about it. He comes back in now with Watson and Reed and Dobbs. That becomes a whole new team for him.
That's right. I think one of the things that, you mentioned that right there is that team, when these guys are healthy, has a great receiving core, one of the better cores in the league. But also look at, Tucker Kraft going down was another, big
Yeah.
hit, and that was a big hit to, Jordan Love in that passing game. But now that these guys are starting to come together, they're healthy, I think Reed, if he's on there, on the waiver wire, he's definitely worth a pickup. I mean, these guys are obviously making a playoff run. We don't know what we're going to see, down the road. I mean, is it going to be something where they're sitting there guys and Reed gets to play, as the number one? That's also something to look at.
I agree. Here's one, John, we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about, Tampa in the past. We talked about Mbuka at the beginning of the year. We talked about Goodwin coming back. Mike Evans is coming back. They just opened a 21-day, window for him to start. So you're looking at him coming back probably within the next couple of weeks. Mike Evans, man, if he's out there in your league, pick him up. Don't sit on him. He comes back, he steps in and becomes Baker Mayfield's number one receiver. Look for him out there. Look to pick him up.
Yeah, if anybody cut Mike Evans, they're crazy. Jump on him. That's a guy that's a touchdown maker. He's a difference maker. Number one target with Baker Mayfield. That's a solid team. Mike Evans comes back. And these receivers going down. Especially Evans. Has been a big hit to Baker Mayfield. You see the difference that passing game has made. He comes back. It's a whole different story. If he's on there, like Ralph said, you're selling the house to pick up Mike Evans for your playoff run.
John, and I'm telling you this, in the big money league I'm in, these guys they dropped Evans. They dropped Daniels, they dropped Burrow, and they dropped Reed. And I've managed to pick these guys up for my playoff run. Now, granted, my IR is Reed. It has Garrett Wilson sitting on the IR. I'm going to have Mike Evans sitting on the IR. So it looks like it looks like a mash unit right now. But
Right.
Playoffs are within the next 2 weeks here. And if these guys come back, and I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, I have Diggs, and I have Trey, the tight end for the Cardinals,
Trey
McBride. So I'm going to
right.
be stacked to sit along with Gibbs and Taylor. So, and then Burrow, a quarterback. So I'm going to be set for the playoff run. So
There's another guy out there. We're talking Tampa Bay, and I talk about this guy the last couple of weeks. Jalen McMillan is actually coming back too. Remember
Yes.
this last year? I mean, he won my fantasy championship in one of my leagues. I had him and Bucky Irving last year that went off. And McMillan scores touchdowns. End of the season, man. He scored 8 touchdowns in the last 5 games, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. It's look out for this guy. He's an excellent receiver. He has good chemistry with Baker Mayfield. That's a sleeper for you. He's coming back.
Yeah. So one guy that for my quarterback sit this week was Justin Hubert. And Herbert, I mean, he has the bad hand. He went for surgery. He's not practicing. If you guys have him, you might want to sit him. But right around the corner is Hampton coming back, a running back. So they're going to get a little break in the running game here. Vidal's going to go back to the bench. Marion Hampton is going to come in and start. If he's sitting out there on your waiver wires, make sure you guys pick up Hampton. Maybe not this week, but next week he should be in your starting lineup, and it's going to help. It's definitely going to help. Herbert. In the long run here, they finally get a running game back, or a good running game, and with Vidal, you never know what you were actually going to get. He was hot and cold weeks, but you know what you get with Hampton. So make sure you look to pick him up if he's sitting there.
Absolutely. I've had him in my other league for the entire season. He's been sitting there, and somebody ended up cutting Vidal last week, so I picked him up. Ended up winning the week. He had an excellent game. But Hampton, Ralph, and like Ralph said, anybody if he's sitting out there, you're all over that for the start.
Yeah, did we do our sit quarterbacks, Sean?
I don't know if we did quarterback.
I think we skipped our sit quarterbacks.
I think we did too.
Yeah, we went right to running backs. We got hooked up, but yeah, let's roll back here real quick. Let's talk about our sit quarterbacks since we skipped over. We're so excited to get to our running backs, but my sit is Herbert. Going against the Eagles. Tough Eagles defense. I mean, he hasn't been the greatest in the last 3 games. Scored under 15 points. He just had surgery on that left hand. He's not playing right now. He's questionable for Monday Night Football. So if you have any other option, to sit there and, hope that, Herbert is going to play Monday night, I'd look for another option if you guys have something that you could play. So
I agree with you on that. I'm hoping he plays because I got McConkey, but I might have to sit him if he doesn't play. You're looking at a Trey Lance stepping in. That's a lot of handoffs, man.
God bless you. But who do you got for your sit, John? We'll figure out what you got here. We'll see if we have any questions, and we'll wrap up tonight. Who's your sit for the week?
My sit of the week is Caleb Williams. I mean, the guy's been playing well, but you look at that running game. Bernal Guy and Swift. I mean, those guys are, they're controlling that offense. The way they're playing. Caleb doesn't have to do a whole lot. I think, I think this week is going to be the week that I sit him. Just based on, the past couple games, not having to throw a lot, running game works very well. I just don't see it this week. I like Caleb, but I think it's one of those guys that he's, we're trying to see where he's at. I mean, is he going to get over the hump and become one of those, top 12 guys, top 15 guys, that we think he's going to be?
He has the skills to do it, John. Like you said, we just got to wait and see if it happens. But again, if playoffs are right around the corner, John, I hope you make it. I'm pushing to make them myself, at least in 2 of my 4 leagues. If you have any questions, any trades coming up, trade deadlines, you want to reach out to us, check us out. Let us know if you have any kind of problems, any questions, any pickups. Give us a yell. And again, if you have any roofing problems, anything goes wrong, it's winter. You're going to need it. Reach out to A+ Roofing. They'll definitely take care of you. 412-515-5466. And John, don't be a sleeper, man. Make sure you get your pickups in, and make sure you get that coffee rolling too, man. I've tried it. It's great. The Fast Lane coffee is definitely a must for everybody. Everybody, thank you. We'll be back next week. Good luck. Playoffs coming up. We'll talk to you again next week. Peace.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, John.